In this video, I'm going to talk a bit about the difference between a client operating system and a server operating system. And I'm going to keep it really at the basic high level overview. You have some reference when we're discussing the topics in future videos. So for starters, I'm assuming that most of you have used a computer to some degree in the past and you are familiar with a client operating system. A client operating system is the operating system that you've used as a client. And typically it will be either a Windows flavor, and that can be multiple versions of Windows depending when you started using the client computer, or a Mac OS if you're using a Macintosh, or a Linux client if you're the more advanced users or running open source like Ubuntu or Fedora, and this is something that you're running. These client machines all share one very important characteristic. They're aimed at a user logging in and performing activities on them. Basically, they only make sense when the user is connecting to them. And as a user, you can connect to them, log in, perform any kind of actions like surfing the internet, creating documents, listening to music, and a lot of other functions. And this is where the client machines shine. They're there to provide the clients with a user experience and performing all kinds of activities related to normal functions and administrative functions that the user might want to achieve. The servers differ from the clients in the perspective that they're not really there for a user to log into, or not in the traditional sense of a user logging in to listen to music. They're there to provide a function, to provide a service. They are there all the time, usually running 24 by 7, but that really depends. But they're there to give a function back. So, for example, a few servers that are common, a web server. A web server hosts a website, and the website is being served to the client. So, for example, a server that hosts a web server is only there to function and properly be used when a client machine accesses this web server and wants to serve that web server. There's a lot of other server types like a DNS server that is related to name resolution that provides answers when asked about a name of an IP or what is the IP of a specific name. And there's a lot of other services like an Active Directory server, which is related to all the logins inside a work environment or a office environment. So all of these servers share a similar characteristic of being there to serve a function. And this is where, if you can see here in the list, there's all kinds of flavors similar to the client side. Windows has multiple flavors based on the year of release. As you can see, it's kind of different than the naming of like 7, 8. This is more like 2008 for the year of release. And then there is an R2 about a year and a half later. And then 2012, 16, 2019, which is the latest. And all of these are flavors of Windows operating systems that are server based that have these functions or have the ability to serve these functions to clients. On the Linux side, you have the same kind of distribution also delivering Linux servers like Ubuntu, Red Hat, CentOS, and such. But the differences are a lot less transparent because usually the main focus of a client, of a Linux client, is to provide IDE and functionality, but you can have the Linux client serve as a server almost the same. And the last one is the Mac OS servers that also exist. They're a lot less common than the Mac OS client side, but they are also there. And if you need some Mac OS related functionality as a server or as a service, they're there to provide it. If I want to recap this slide and what is the main difference, a server is there to provide a service to the environment. It's always running. It's not something that you would necessarily log into. It's a machine that might be in a server room. It might be in the cloud somewhere in a remote data center and is there to provide a service. A client is a machine that you're probably logging into physically. It might be your laptop, it might be your work computer, it might be a machine that you have somewhere under your desk as a backup. But this machine is where you're logging into, performing all the client activities, and from there you're consuming a service that is coming from a remote server potentially. I hope it made sense in the general clear between those two separate type of operating system. But if you have question, leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer below.